Do I have a trust? Well, that's the $2,500 question or the $2,500 plus question. What do I mean by that? Well, the Department of Finance released some new trust reporting rules effective for years ending after December 30th, 2023, requiring virtually all trusts to file trust returns. So that could be formal trusts that didn't otherwise have income or a trust filing obligation. But this now extends as far as bare trusts. And a lot of people that have entered bare trust arrangements don't necessarily have any formal documentation and don't necessarily even know what a bare trust is. They often come up in real estate for where the real estate's held. They come up in estate administration or probate planning. They come up in the situation for helping people obtain financing for mortgages or purchases of property. There are a number of situations. Sometimes it's just transfers of equipment to corporations or the holding of certain assets outside who they consider the beneficial owner to be. So bare trusts now need to file trust returns. Virtually all trusts need to file trust returns, but do you have to file? Well, that really depends. I think if you're asking the question, you're probably further ahead than a lot of people that might have bare trusts and not even realize it. I would also say if you're asking the question, then there's probably a chance you do have one. So a situation where you might be asking the question is perhaps you helped an adult child purchase a home. They didn't have the income or the assets or the equity to obtain a mortgage by themselves. So the mortgage broker required you to be on title to the property. So you maybe have a 1% interest in your child's real estate. If the child was to sell the real estate, they might take the proceeds themselves. Perhaps they're responsible for all the costs, the risks and rewards of ownership, and your name's simply there so they could qualify for the mortgage. In that case, it's probably a bare trust arrangement, and you're probably required to file a trust return. Another situation that comes up is when elderly individuals add adult children to their investment accounts, their bank accounts, etc., perhaps even their real estate, so they don't have to pay estate administration tax in a province where that applies, or probate tax. So if their will would otherwise need to be probated, there could be fees on that. In Ontario, it's as high as 1.5% of the value of the property. But if the property passes to another individual on title, perhaps that can be avoided. So sometimes adults' children are added to their elderly parents' property for those reasons. But again, still consider it the elderly parents' property. They'd be responsible for the risks and rewards of it. They would receive the proceeds if it was sold. So chances are that there's a bare trust relationship there. Another example is for real estate, avoiding the merging of land titles. So avoiding parcels of land being combined together. So if two parcels of land in Ontario in many situations are side by side and have the same owners on them, the land title system might cause those properties to merge and become a single lot. So often the owner might add an additional name to the property, perhaps a corporation, perhaps their children, for example, so that it's a different ownership structure for legal purposes, but not necessarily for beneficial purposes for adjacent lots. I actually had a client come to me a few weeks ago, expecting that they had a trust filing obligation because they just set up an alter ego trust, which can be a useful estate planning tool. But in reviewing their situation, there were certain assets that hadn't been transferred to the trust and were still owned by the individual. And for a matter of fact, they had different combinations of ownership for legal purposes. So a number of investment accounts and bank accounts that had a different combination of their children's names on them for various reasons, and a number of parcels of land. So this individual owned several parcels that were all sort of close together, some all side by side and in different pieces. So they added a different combination of their children's names to each one so that they wouldn't merge under the land title system. So someone that came expecting to have to file one trust return for the first time for the 2023 year actually has over 10 trust returns to file because of the bare trust arrangements that they've entered. So it is worth reviewing your situation. A lot of the situations don't actually have any formal documentation, so it might make sense to formalize it. There could be some options to consolidate filings or to define the terms if there's going to be an obligation. You might as well have it in writing what that is, or perhaps there's another structure that might make more sense in light of the new reporting rules.